Hello, guys. I am back with another episode here on European Confessions. So, there are some messages that I am going to share with you guys. The first message reads like this: Hello, can you please post for me? I am that guy whom you once spoke with, that guy who said that I am submissive. Maybe I didn't fully explain it. My submissive tendencies come from just feeling like worshipping a woman, just wanting to save her. I've been like that for about 15 years or so, and I really love it. That is why age to me is not an issue at all. I just want to be a slave of a woman that I'll be dating at that time. Even to the point, I just have to say this. I even have a fantasy whereby the woman that I'll be dating makes me her own property, even to the point of hair popping inside my mouth. To me, that is just a turn on, like totally making me her slave. That is how I am. I feel like I just had to confess. The following message that I am going to read for you guys reads like this. Hello, my brother Nashi. Can you please post for me as Heidi? This is my own story. I am 37 years old, but I don't have any children at all. My father passed away during the COVID-19 pandemic. I thought that this was the end of my suffering, but no, it wasn't. I think that I am even suffering more than that I did when my father was still alive. My parents came to South Africa as teachers way back when I was still a child, so I attended my school here in South Africa. What surprised me is that my dad, even though he had lots and lots of money, he had even started businesses here in South Africa, and also back home he had other businesses, but he was so cruel to his relatives. I still remember that my aunt once came home looking for money to visit a doctor. So I decided to open my dad's safe that was always in the house. Then I gave auntie some money so that she can go to the doctor. But I don't know how my mother and my father knew that I had given my auntie money, because on that same very day my parents flew back from South Africa. I was surprised to see that my father's car that always stayed at the parking lot at the airport was now at our house. He was so angry at me and he was shouting as if I had just killed someone. My aunt was still in the house, so he said to my auntie, "Give me the money that you have stolen from my daughter." My auntie gave back the money, but she was in tears. She asked my father, asking him, saying that, "If you don't want to help me, who is going to help me? Brother, are you not my own blood?" My aunt had a very big wound on her hand, so much that there was so much fluid that came out of that wound. Each and every 30 minutes, she would change the bandage. When she came to our house, she had used a scarf to tie the wound because she could not afford to buy any bandages. So I felt pity on her. During that time, also, I had started doing my medical studies, so I started to clean her wound. Trust me when I tell you this, that I have never, and in my whole life, I haven't seen something terrible like that. Her wound was on the joint between the thumb and the palm. The wound had made a trench which was so deep that I could even see her inner bones down the wrist. It was as if the tissues inside had been eaten up. It was so unbearable because you could see that inside all the tissues were worn out. The wound kept on pumping a lot of fluid. So I cleaned up the wound and I dressed it with a new bandage. But when my father arrived, he took the money from my auntie and he told my auntie to remove the bandage, saying that if you don't give me back the money that you have stolen from my child, and if you don't remove the bandage that you have taken from my house, I am going to call the police, because at that time my father had lodged a protection order against our relatives. out of fear, my auntie then removed the bandage. She tried tying herself with a scarf, but she failed. So when I wanted to help, my father then punched me in the back. I fell down. My dad then told my auntie to put the money on the table. Then my dad and my mother, they escorted my auntie out of the house. I think that they just dumped auntie maybe somewhere along the road because they took a long time to come back. Then the next morning, my dad got a call that she was admitted to the hospital, but my dad, instead of visiting auntie in the hospital, my dad just booked a flight for us back to South Africa. So when my aunt died, we never attended her funeral. This was the rule in our family that we don't attend any relative's funeral. I think that this was around 2006 to 2007, and back in our country at that time, things were very tough. So our relatives would call sometimes asking for help. My dad would say it is okay, but at the end he will say that if you decide to come and if you get eaten by the lions along the border, it is your fault because it is you who wants to come to South Africa. At that time, to me, it didn't make sense to why my father will always tell our relatives that if you want to come to South Africa, if you get eaten by a lion, it is your fault. But now that I am looking back, three of our relatives that wanted to come to South Africa, they came, but all of them, they just disappeared into thin air and there is no trace of them. I think now it is about 14 years now, and the last time we heard from them was that when they were saying that they were on their way coming to South Africa. Then whenever a relative will tell us that they are on their way coming to our house, my dad will start to grind his knife for a very long time without taking a break, and sometimes he would sharpen his knife sometimes up until 10 p.m. Once upon a time, there was this other mom's niece of mine who called my mom saying that he was on his way coming to South Africa, but he had no place to stay. Mind you, my dad had 3 houses in South Africa and 2 houses back home and 2 more houses which are in Germany where my mother is now staying. So my mother told her niece to come over to our province that we were staying at that time. So I don't know how this happened, but I think that my parents had a hand in this because my mom's niece was arrested and was deported. He only told me this when I was talking to him on WhatsApp that the police that arrested him told him that they did so on my parents' instructions. At 21, I was supposed to be given a car, but I was not given that car because I had given my auntie the money. I was then given my first car when I was only 24 years. There is something that I had left out that I am now recalling about the day that I gave my auntie the money. When my parents came back home, they came with another man. This guy was just wearing a black gown. This man was speaking a language that is called Chewa. This guy was from Malawi. They went with him into their bedroom and then they came out of the bedroom at around 12 midnight. My dad and my mom never touched that money. Then they sent me to go and call our garden boy and our maid who were a married couple. So these people who were working for us, they lived in the cottage. When I went to call these people that were working for us, I felt that there was something that was strange. There was a strange presence that was behind me. This thing felt like a snake. So I ran. When I came back with them. Then that guy who was speaking in Chewa from Malawi gave them the money, but my parents didn't even touch that money. The money that they gave them, it was about 10,500 rand because my aunt had said that she wanted 8,000 rands for her bills at the doctor. So I had also given her with some extra money for food and other expenses. Then that man who was from Malawi removed 300 rands from that money and the money that he removed, it was 100 Rands bills, and he put it aside. He then shared the money amongst the two of them, and my dad then told them that they should leave our house because their job was finished. My father then gave them another bunch of money and told them to start packing right away, and he called our driver to come and get them. Those people were given most of our property, so much that the UD truck was filled with the property that my parents had given them. That man from Malawi then took 100 Rands and he put that 100 Rands in a matchbox. Then he took another 100 Rands and he spit on it, and he used it to wipe my father's hands and my father's face. Then he took another 100 Rands, then he gave it to my father so that he can wipe my mother's private parts. He then told my father, after he had wiped my mother's private part with that money, to go outside so that he can urinate on that 100 Rands. After that, my father started shouting at me, saying that, "Can you see what you have done? Look what you have done." So after that, after my father had urinated on that 100 Rands, he then took that money and then he wiped my dad, and that man from Malawi bent that money. He then told us to go and throw the last 100 Rands, and we got into our car, which was about a 2-minute drive to the CBD. When we arrived in the CBD, they told me to get off from the car, and they told me that I was supposed to throw the money and I should never look back. I did this. After we had done this, we came back here to South Africa. At the age of 21, my problems started. One day I was taking a bath when something like a flower or something that looked like broccoli came out of my private parts. Till this date, this is what exactly happens to me. Every time when I feel like I want to go to the toilet, these things just come out of me, these things that look like broccoli. The day that my periods ended, it was the day that I had a dream, and in that dream, I was having sexual intercourse with my father. Until now, I don't even go on my periods. I don't have a marriage and I don't have a child at all. I stopped dating when I realized that any man that I try to date, that man will just die mysteriously. I found a man who told me that he loves me the way that I am. So we slept together. We slept only once, and his manhood stopped functioning. So now I am trying to push him away because of the guilt that I feel that if I keep on dating him, maybe he is going to die like all the men that I have dated before. As of my relatives whom I have tried to contact, those relatives of mine, they just give me a shoulder. My mother is now in Germany, and it is another story again. The house that she stays in, I cannot even visit because each and every time that I enter into that house, strange things happen to me. I feel like my breast have milk as if I am breastfeeding a baby. My dad died in South Africa and was just cremated. My mom never told my dad's relatives. After my father had passed away, my mom only told my dad's relative that he was dead after only 1 month. She only called and she told my dad's relative saying that your son is dead, and she just dropped the phone. So now my dad's ashes are always by my mom's side. Even if she goes shopping, she will always carry my dad's ashes. So there is this other prophet whom I consulted. When I consulted this prophet, she told me that my mother made me to drink some tea, and in that tea she had put some of my father's ashes in that tea. That is why each and every man that I sleep with just dies, because now I am married to a spiritual husband. The problem is that this prophet that was trying to help me tried now to take advantage of me because he kept on requesting for more money. I ended up giving up. Now I am at a stage whereby I just wish that death is so much better, because I am almost going crazy because of these stresses. This is my own secret, and sometimes I just wish that I will die because I am just tired.
Dear listeners, apologies right there for the poor sound quality because I've been recording this story whilst I was on the road. But I hope that you were able to hear that said confession from our dear sister. Please let us talk about this issue in the comment section.